Welcome to Stand Up for Doctors. I'm your host, Kim Downey. Thank you very much for joining us. I'd like to welcome Ransom Oynema and Pamela Aloia. Thanks for joining us today, Ransom and Pamela.
Thanks for having us.
Okay, you're very welcome. And by way of introduction, you each reached out to me on LinkedIn, Ransom over a year ago, and Pamela just a few months ago. And Ransom is a fourth-year medical student in Nigeria with a special interest in radiology. He's a top-rated medical writer, highly recognized by Favikon, and he's eager to learn and grow. And I can attest to that. I know you are, Ransom. And Pamela is a writing consultant offering author support, and she feels that there's a writer waiting to bloom in everyone. And I just think that's awesome, Pamela.
It's true.
Yeah, I believe you. I believe it. And today we'll be talking about your journey to becoming writers and how you're able to use your experience and expertise to support doctors and other healthcare professionals. So as we get started, I'll ask each of you what you'd like our audience to know about you. And Pamela, would you like to go first?
Sure. To go along the line with what you're saying about how we became writers, or how I personally became a writer, I believe that I have been a writer forever. I think I may have come into this world as a writer. For as long as I can remember, I've been writing stories and short poems. When I was younger, in first, second grade, I remember bringing stories and poems to my family and reading them to them before or after dinner. And it wasn't very good. I'm sure I provided a lot of entertainment for them at some point. And then I did get a little better at it, and I had my first poem published when I was in high school. And after that, I wound up going to college for English with psychology and healthcare administration minors. I actually wanted to work in the healthcare administration field, but I do believe that God had other plans for me. So I wound up finding a few internships that were really good and landed myself a job through that internship. And that led me down the path of being a technical writer. And then I became a quality manager and project and program manager in the pharmaceutical and oil and gas industries. And if you know anything about the pharmaceutical environment, which I'm sure you do, there's a lot of validation involved, a lot of writing of specs and implementation plans, and other documentation like proposals and RFIs and things like that. So my path took me a little bit more for my career. My path took me towards more of the technical aspect. But in all of that, I still always took some writing on the side. So I always made time for writing, whether it was short stories, poems, and started writing books. In fact, I wrote a couple of books, more, I call them inspirational and personal growth type books. The two most common ones that people know are 52 Pick Me Up and The Daily Cloak. And this year, I'm starting to write for youth, for younger readers. So that's kind of exciting. But I think my passion, I don't want to say I think, I know this because I've been working with, I've always, like I said, always had some writing or editing gig on the side where I was helping people with newsletters, write their articles, write their books, edit for them, whatever it is they needed, because writing is definitely my passion. And the more I work with writers, the more I work with authors, especially those who have a story to tell. I mean, there are so many people going through different things. Some of it's ongoing, and the human spirit that comes forward when we tell our story. Not only do we heal from writing our story, but we inspire other people by writing it. And I really enjoy helping people get their voice heard authentically as possible, and so that it lands really well with the reader. And that's where I'm at right now.
That's beautiful. Thank you for sharing. And when I include links of how our listeners can get in touch with you, you could also share a link to your publications if anyone was interested
Awesome.
in
Thank
checking
you.
them out. So I'll put
Noted.
that all in the show notes. So Ransom, what would you like our listeners to know about you?
All right. Thank you so much, Kim, for this opportunity to, be a guest speaker on your podcast. It's an honor, to be honest. Yeah, we've already talked about a little bit about me. I'm a fourth year radiography student, with an interest in radiology, because I don't want to be a radiographer just like that. I just want to, get a degree in radiography and then furthermore to being a radiologist. All right. So And apart from my medical studies in radiography, I'm also a top-rated medical writer and also YouTube content creator where I talk about two things, right? I talk about med talks in general. It could be talks on radiology, ophthalmology, different kinds of med talks, and I talk about freelance medical writing. So I started writing, medical, you know, publications and all such when I was my first year as a radiography medical student, in my first year, that was 2020. But before that, I was writing personal statements for a couple of people here in my country, wanting to travel abroad, like going to med school, I was just writing personal statements for them. And fast forward to 2020, my first year in university, that was the time I figured out that I loved medical writing, and I moved into Upwork. Upwork is where freelancers are as well. And that was the first place I got my first gig, as a writer. That was in December period, 2020. And I was paid for $5 for that, to write some couple of writings, publications for a medical doctor back then. I think he was in Australia, I guess. That was a long time ago, almost 4 years ago now. So, that gig made me to realize that, hey, I need to, go more forward, put in more effort in my writings and medical writing. And, fast forward to now, it's been an amazing journey for me, as a medical writer and also a medical student, because, comprising a lot of people have been reaching out to me how I manage those two equations. Like now I call it three equations. I have a YouTube as well, study radiography and also medical writing and also YouTube content creator. It's a very terrible kind of work to do altogether, because being a medical student is also a full-time job, So a little bit about me is I'm a very cool type of person, so hardworking as well, because I don't know how I do it, how I manage others' works to do, but it's a blessing to me that my writings, my works, things I offer to the table is really very, people find value in what I offer, gives me a lot of, energy, a lot of perseverance to keep going in everything I do in life and in the future as well. So in terms of my writing, I've written a lot of, you know, medical stuff for a couple of people, a couple of companies, and a couple of personal clients I work with. And I've done a lot of ghostwriting for a couple of clients, written a couple of medical articles, and I have a writing portfolio on Mediums where I do my writing portfolio where I publish a lot of a lot of publications based on my work. And recently I had a written med talks with a doctor in the UK. Her name is Dr. Faith Lee. She's a medical doctor based in the UK. We had the written med talks. It's on my writing portfolio as well. So fast forward to now, I'm really very happy that everything I do, is really very, people really find something good in what I offer to the table. Like I say, it gives me a lot of energy, and I'm really, really happy that um, in the nearest future, beginning from now to the nearest future, I'll do way more. I've done for years since my first year, as a radiography student. Yeah, thank you so much.
Well, thank you, Ransom. That's terrific. And I know that you're a very hard worker. I've seen that, and I've seen you all over LinkedIn. And that's just great. So one thing I thought I'd share as we kick off our topic is back in December, I had an article, a collaborative article published on Kevin MD with Dr. Bryce Bowers and Dr. Behrooz Beybad, and the title was "Why Write Physicians Share Their Stories of Healing Through Writing." So I thought that article perfectly dovetailed with what we're talking about today. And I was going to read just a line or two taken from that article, first from Dr. Bryce Bowers. And he says, "We all have a story. We all have perspectives and experiences unlike anyone else in the entire world. It is so important to share these to help others who are struggling and remind each other that we're not alone. And then Beiruz says, sharing stories is a powerful wellness tool. It allows us to express our struggles and triumphs, connect with others on a human level, and foster a sense of community and shared understanding. For doctors, it can serve as a form of emotional release, a way to process the intense experiences we encounter in our profession. And Pamela, I saw you on your head if you'd like to speak to what that brings up for you and how you've been able to support doctors with their writing.
Well, it is just so apropos. I mean, and it definitely affects doctors and affects many other industries as well. I think the bottom line is stress is just over excessive stress that occurs in our work environments. So I'm going to give a little bit of background. Years ago, I would say probably 20 years ago, 24 years ago, maybe, I had developed a lot of health issues, and that was definitely directly related to work stress, working 60 to 80-hour weeks, whether it was for startup companies or getting clinical trials online, whatever it was just a lot of stress. And those, I have no doubt in my mind that stress caused the physical and the emotional issues that I was having at the time. And because of those issues, I wound up trying to find ways to still do everything I needed to do and feel good. But that didn't work. I needed to do some I needed to make some lifestyle changes. So I did. I mean, I think we all know, we talk about now how important self-care is, and it really is. Having that self-care regimen in place is so important, whether that's exercise, meditation, mindfulness, finding your tribe, or whatever it is. But for me, it was all of that. But I also found that it was really important for me, and I have this, I would call it insatiable desire to share with other people that we can so live differently. And it's up to us to make those changes so that we can live differently, not only for ourselves, but impact other folks to incorporate that change. So I do have a few healthcare clients, whether in the industry as nurses, doctors, and administration, a lot in the mental health care environment too. All this to say, pretty much everything that your two quotes summed up so beautifully is that we all have experiences, and the way that we perceive them or write about them and relay them to other people can get somebody through the day, can get somebody through their week, can help them find that inner strength that they didn't know they had, or they knew it was there, they didn't know how to access it. So supporting humanity in her growth that way, I think, is incredibly important. I know we always say, you know, we have that cliche, we're in this together. We truly are. We truly are. I believe we're here to walk with each other, to uplift each other, and to make this world a better place than when we came here. And I believe that's what I do when I support people and helping write their stories. And whether you want to publish it or not, there is great power, as one of your quotes stated, there's incredible power, self-empowerment, releasing and processing emotions just in writing your story. And then if you go on and decide to publish it, all the more power to you. And I believe, based on my background, professionally and personally, that I come prepared and well-equipped both emotionally and professionally to partner with folks to help them write their story and help them through any of the emotional stuff that comes up as we go through that. I recently, as you know, as you introduced me to Dr. Foti, I did work with a recent physician who was experiencing some health issues while he was doing his residency, and he wanted to get his story out there. And so I collaborated with him on editing that, helping out with the cover, and anything and everything that you needed to do to help publish that, self-publish it. And that book is called Grief, and you can find that on Amazon too. With that, I believe that doctors in general, I think that the public seems to forget that doctors are human. And the more that we can support doctors in sharing their stories, sharing their perspective, helping to educate us, the people who are not doctors, the more we can purport that change that is necessary. I mean, we all know that there's issues with the system, but doctors' hands are tied in many instances. Insurance hurdles are there, and we tend to blame the person that's in front of us instead of trying to get behind the system and find out how we can change that. So I feel like if we get some of the more doctors and professionals and medical professionals in helping to tell their story, accurately addressing some of these things that need to change and helping it land real well with the reader, we can not only gather people who are in that industry, but people outside that industry to also fuel some of the fire and get their juices, their empowerment juices flowing so we can help everyone. When I was in corporate, as much as anywhere in society, in any system that we have, I think change is really important. I am very passionate about change. And if one person or if 10 people's story can help initiate or perpetuate that change, I'm all for it. Let's get those stories out there.
That's terrific. That's so well said. And I've spoken with a number of physicians who have become writers, whether it's
Yeah.
books or articles for Kevin MD. And in order for it not to feel daunting for physicians, a lot of physicians said, when you start to write, you're writing for yourself. So again, just write down whatever comes to mind. And Dr. Frances May Harden, who also has a publishing company for physicians called Hippocratic Press, the Hippocratic Press. It's brand new, and she calls your first draft a vomit draft, right? And she says
Sure.
that you're basically just getting it all out there, and nobody else has to see it, and then you can decide where you want to take it. And it doesn't have to be like chronological from your whole entire life. You could just write down whatever comes to you, and then you can decide what and when you share, and with people such as both of yourselves could help a doctor fine tune that and get something published. So Ransom, what does that bring to mind for you? What would you like to add?
I love that question. Pamela talked about, touched the necessary pain points, and I'll just add some few things. I've worked with a couple of doctors personally. I've also invited them for a med talk on my podcast. That's when we come in, we writers, and also an aspiring physician in the future. Um, as a medical writer and also a medical student studying radiography, I love the statement Pamela used that doctors are human as well, and doctors are willing to share the story. Because a few hours ago, I was listening to an interventional cardiologist talking a story about how the take off the brain tumor off from the brain located to the motor context. The motor context in the brain is where the energy system is that gives us kind of like an energy where it works in contact with the brain. That's where the energy of the brain comes out from, the motor context. And he was talking about the MR, taking pictures of the MRI scan and that was such a thing. So I want to know something that kind of story he's talking us through, not everybody's going to understand what he's saying. Not everybody. What if you're going to understand it is when you have if a medicine or a healthcare background is when you're going to understand what he's saying. So how about people off from the niche of medicine or any kind of healthcare in general? This is where we come into the picture. As a writer, I try to break down the jargon to use for doctors. We med students, we use a lot of jargons in our studies and everything. So this is where we come into the picture. I try to break down those jargons, those medical jargons for easy understanding of the people. Because if you're sharing a story as a medical doctor through the writer, you're not talking to only people that are only medical doctors or any kind of medical professional. No, you're talking to a wider audience. You're trying to share a story to a wider audience. So this is why we come into the picture. We try to make things easier for the medical doctors I've worked with. I try to, it's like an image, in radiographic, there's something they call image. It's like a mental something, you have a picture in mental, So when it comes in reality, that's what we do. When a doctor has a story to share, we bring that image into reality, making it easier for people in different professions, someone in tech, someone in engineering, someone in any kind of profession can easily understand what a medical doctor is talking about. And I want to talk about stress. When I was in my second year as a radiography student, one of my lecturers, Dr. Tom Adejo, he's a radiographer, and he talked about that the patient is the king of, when you talk about the hospital setting, the patient is the king. All the works and all the levels in the hospital is for the patient, all right? So I'll just say in a nutshell, in my own little understanding, because I'm not working as a medical doctor, medical radiographer yet. I'm still fourth year, one more year for me to go to graduate by God's grace. So in my own little understanding, what I will say about stress is there should be a definite, an amazing environment for medical doctors to practice. Now, when you talk about Nigeria, my country, there are a lot of things going on in the healthcare system, a lot of misdiagnosis, a lot of terrible things happening, which is very, very terrible. And so having it been an amazing educational, strategies, because I'm talking to my country as well. Nigeria, we're really facing a lot. So if we have an amazing educational system, that trains the future medical doctors like us, medical physicians like us, to have have a solid foundation because of the future. It's going to be help a very amazing thing to do. When you talk about education, what I mean by education is a propellant, for the future, right? Once we are taught, educated, and okay, for instance, I'm studying radiography. Once I'm educated, I'm taught prevalently in terms of that course, it helps me to, you know, face the obstacles in the future. So if I'm going through a med school, like I don't know what I'm doing in the med school, is a very terrible thing. So I would say a very amazing educational system, for we aspiring medical doctors, to propel us to face the stress in the future, and also having an amazing environment for the medical doctors to work with. So this is what I have to say, man. Thank you.
Well, that's great. Thank you for sharing that. And that's a really big thing you said about facing obstacles. And that was another question I was going to ask each of you because we all have challenges and obstacles in our life. And when we each share stories, sometimes we can glean a snippet of how we've moved forward. So Pamela, you've had a number of, different experiences and, and careers in your life. And I'm wondering what has helped you overcome challenges.
First and foremost, I think is putting myself first. I think I grew up in a society and a family where you really needed to make sure that everybody else was okay before you dealt with yourself. And that can be detrimental on a lot of levels. It could be good, because you are reading the room, you are understanding people, and you're getting to support people. But putting yourself first and not pushing aside any of those emotions or any of those, pains that you're having for too long, because it's important to put yourself first. Everybody says you can't drink from an empty cup or a half-filled cup. So got to make sure yours is filled. So once I did that and understanding the self-care that is needed, meditation has definitely been by and far one of the best things I've ever started doing. It's brought me into energy work, which I also love and enjoy, and connect with people in that regard. Helping people understand that there are other ways to deal with stress by going within, by finding that mindfulness, by finding that meditation. And I believe too that we have the answers within ourselves. I have some workshops that I do where we find that wisdom within, whether we have a specific situation that we need to either work through or a problem we need to solve. If we write about it or we have to ask the right questions, we can find and unearth that wisdom if we just write about it. In addition to that, I don't think I'd be anywhere without the support of my family. If my family weren't here, supporting my crazy ideas, one right after the other, and I wouldn't be as far as I am for sure. So.
Yeah,
That's
well,
what's helped me.
that's great. Thanks for sharing. And it is, I think, a mistake in some ways that from the time of medical school, as Ransom also alluded to, that you're always taught the patient comes first. And in some ways, that's just not true, that you have to support yourself, because I've heard so many stories I could share about doctors showing up at work sicker than any patient that they were treating. And in some ways, you have to, again, to be able to be in a position to help other people, you have to be in a good place yourself. So we have to change the narrative on that, definitely. And Ransom, I know because you were kind enough, you had me on your YouTube channel a while back, and you had spoken to just the resources in Nigeria and that patients generally don't receive well care, you know, because here we're trying to make primary care for everyone and trying to make it more accessible. But basically, in your country, I know lots of times patients don't show up until they have like stage 4 cancer or they're in really bad shape. And I was just wondering in your personal life, so to become a doctor, you know, everything, a lot of things are more difficult where you are, right? There's more challenges, less resources. So what's inspired you and what's helped you overcome challenges?
I would say I don't let my environment to weigh me back, or weigh me down in general, So that's why I push myself beyond the limits as I'm doing right now. And because in my country there are so many restraints, so many restrictions, as well, like you said. But I care less about all those restrictions. That's why I motivate myself, to keep pushing. And I will say my family as well. Those people have been my supporters from way back, like my mom, my family in general. They've been my backbone, helping me thrive more, helping me to be very pessimistic in everything I do. And I really love my family as well because there have been people supporting me in terms of schooling, in terms of giving me a lot of advices in my work, and also mentors as well, because I have a lot of mentors I look up to, like Dr. Antonio J. Webb, he's an interventional cardiologist. And I also have a mentor like Dr. Nina Lowell. He's a Nigerian American interventional radiologist that I also look up to. So all those mentors kind of like motivate me to keep moving forward, because mentors, in a layman's understanding, mentors are like people that have passed that level you're in, that are way ahead of you, that can give you advice, So those people that have passed that path I'm in already, they're already ahead of me. They can give me a lot of advices, give me a lot of things, share a lot of things to me that can propel me to move further in my career. So, and also my passion, because my passion for medicine way back, because I didn't get into medicine, because I loved medicine, and I didn't get into it because of a lot of things that happened. My cut of mark wasn't up for medicine because I wrote a lot of exams and I didn't meet the required marks in moving to medicine. So I was given radiography as an option. And I never liked the radiography in the first place. But as I was going, I was loving the course. I started falling in love with the course, and I grew a passion for that course. So my passion for radiography, my passion about writing, my passion about creating amazing content for people to learn more, especially the med talks, because in my country people have a lot of, you know, not a really solid understanding about methods in general. So inviting people, professionals in that area of expertise to talk about, the expertise and everything can also help people to have a solid understanding about methods in general. So yeah, my passion, my family, my mentors have been my backbone ever since, and I'm really proud of them. So thank you.
Well, that's great. Thank you, Ransom. That's inspiring. And as we wind down, Pamela, do you have any suggestions for patients who wish to support their doctors?
I think, as we said earlier, it's really seeing them as human. I mean, I think you can read the room, when somebody's having a tough time. And I think doctors are great at hiding it. They are trained to. In many regards, they need to, but they are human. I had a doctor a couple of years ago where I just walked in and he looked so tired. I said, "When are you taking a day off next?" And he just felt like he couldn't. So it's seeing them as people, see them as your friend, as your child, as your parent. Like, how would you treat them? How would you want to be treated if you were a doctor too? Try not to put your doctor on a pedestal, but also don't downgrade them. I know it's easy to blame the person that's in front of you for the system that's breaking behind them, but make sure we ask the right questions, start a conversation, and see where it goes.
Absolutely. I agree 100% with everything you just said. Thank you for putting that so eloquently. And Ransom, as we're winding down, I'm going to ask how our listeners can get in touch with you. And also if you have any tips, because you have so many LinkedIn connections, you have a lot of like YouTube, subscribers and followers. So if we have any physicians out there who are interested in becoming more active in these kind of spaces, how have you promoted yourself to have all these LinkedIn connections and YouTube followers and subscribers?
I'll just say consistency in a nutshell. You know, showing up consistently and strategically at the right time, you keep showing up. There is no way you're gonna lose in everything you do. So I was so consistent. I was so hardworking, regardless of the critics I get. Behind the scenes. I don't let that weigh me back. Because coming from a country with a lot of restrictions, I don't let that weigh me back. Like I said before. So you know, showing up strategically, you know, hard work, because we med students are very hardworking, because if you're not hardworking, I don't know, you can't really surpass the things happening in med school in general. So, my consistency, showing up, connect with like-minded personality off from my niche and beyond my niche, is really helping me. And I'm working so hard in everything I do. I try to make myself stand out because of, for instance, me being a writer, there are thousands of writers out there, thousands of them. So how do clients know that I'm the right person to do the work on the project? So that's why I try to market myself, because nobody's gonna do that for me, because if you're not marketing yourself, there's no way you're gonna get a recommendation from people. So I've been getting a lot of recommendations from people because of my quality marketing strategies. So yeah, I'm so blessed that people are really following me up, and really liking my work is really amazing, because recently I checked Favikon and there are only 50 medical content creators in Nigeria, and I was in the first thought. It's really very happy and very amazing to see that my recognitions are really going global, and I'm really proud of that. So if you're looking forward to having a lot of followers on LinkedIn, but you don't need to consider about the followers, because followers don't really matter in stuff like that. You just have to, what contents are you putting out there, so you can have 5,000 followers and you people don't really value what you do. So don't really focus on the followers, just focus on how to improve yourself and how to learn, keep learning, because I keep learning every day as a radiographer student. I keep learning so I can improve myself. And yeah, because I don't want to kill other people, like as a medical professional in future. I don't want to kill other people with radiations and stuff like that. So that's why I try to improve myself and keep learning. So if you're looking forward to blooming, on LinkedIn or social, all kinds of social media, just keep know what you want in the first place before you keep, doing what you're doing. So in a nutshell, just keep showing up, strategically, consistently, sorry, and there's no way you're gonna lose, and so connect with a lot of people, network with a lot of people, and at the end, at the beginning, it's not gonna be very sweet as you expected, but at the end, it's worth it. It's worth it. Thank you so much.
Okay. Well, thank you. I love the way you said that. What I can also say is that you support other people as well, right? And sometimes if you want people to support you, it helps if you support them too, and you're really good at that. And besides LinkedIn, is there any links that you'd like to share that I'll put in the show notes on how people can find you?
Yeah, I'm also on Instagram at Ransom Oynema. I'm also on Twitter, X, at Ransom Oynema as well. So I'm also on YouTube and LinkedIn as well. So yeah, you can just follow me up there. And if you want any of my services in medical writing, I'm also there for you to help. So
Okay, terrific. Well, you can send me the links that you want me to put in the show notes, and then I'll hyperlink all of those, okay? Okay, and Pamela, how can our listeners get in touch with you?
Well, same thing. You can find me on LinkedIn at Pamela Aloia Author, and my website for services and workshops is blossomingeveryday.com. That's blossomingeveryday.com.
Okay.
Thanks.
Well, thank you both very much. I was really happy to have you both on today. And so thank you for being my guests.
Thank you, Kim. This has been wonderful. And thanks, Ransom. It was wonderful meeting you.
Yeah, thank you so much. It's a blessing. Thank you.
Okay, you're both very welcome. And in closing, to move the needle in healthcare, we all need to raise our voices and we all need to care about each other. We already know that doctors need to care about patients. Patients need to care about doctors too. So stand up, doctors, and let's stand up for doctors.
Absolutely.
Stop.